Babysitting can be a pretty easy job. You know, you just look after some kids for a few hours, put them to sleep, wait for their parents to come back home and get some money. Pretty simple stuff. But what if those parents stay out partying all night, come back super late, and then don't even pay you for your time? Not as good as it once sounded, is it? Entitled Mum, my sister, left me alone to watch her baby all night long while she and her husband partied. She was furious when I billed them for extra time. This happened when my nephew was just a year old, so like 7 years ago. My sister, the entitled mum of this story, asked me to babysit my nephew for her and her husband for a few hours, so they could go to the Mardi Gras parades together. I said I was making plans that night, so I couldn't, but she begged me to help her, because they'd not had a date night since the nephew was born, and they needed some time alone together as a couple. I begrudgingly said I would, but only if they paid me $15 per hour, because watching a baby is hard, and I turned down plans for this. Me, my sister and brother-in-law all agreed on that, so I was set to come over that Saturday night. I showed up at 5 AM. Parades were to start at 6 o'clock, I think, and they both said they would be back no later than 10 PM, so that's $75 for 5 hours. I was allowed to watch TV, use their Wi-Fi, and eat, drink whatever was in the fridge. But my sister said I better not go nuts on our food. Wonderful jab at my weight. Thanks, sis. I flipped her off, then my brother-in-law comes in with my nephew and hands him off to me. I make sure to reiterate that they are both coming back at 10 and I ask for payment up front, but my sister says they're going to have to stop at an ATM on the way back. They don't have cash on them. I'm annoyed, but I say alright. I ask if they're going to be drinking and how they'll get back if they are, and also drive me home because our mum drove me to their place so I was stuck. And my sister says, of course we're not. But I don't believe her. She can't have fun without a beer. But while she's getting her jacket, my brother-in-law says he's not drinking anything, but she probably will, so he'll be the designated driver for tonight. At least there's that. I bid them goodbye and settle in with my nephew. I play with him for hours, put on his favourite cartoons, and feed him dinner, change his diaper, etc. All the usual stuff. I'm not a stranger to watching kids for relatives, so this isn't new for me, but my nephew is hard to get to sleep. He wants his mum and dad. This had been the first time he'd gone to sleep without them there, and cried for almost an hour, no matter the different ways I tried to soothe him, before eventually wearing himself out and falling asleep at almost 9 PM. I was tired, but glad I was almost done for the night. Yeah, what I was saying earlier about babysitting being easy, I'm beginning to retract that statement. 10 PM rolled around. Nothing. Then it got to be 10:30, so I called my sister to see what the holdup was. She answered and I could tell she'd been drinking. She was giggly, and after I asked where they were, she said they were looking for her shoe, and she said something about they ran into our cousin, another entitled person, great, and they were totally heading back ASAP. I said to hurry up, and she said something I literally couldn't understand before she hung up on me. 11 PM rolled around, and still nothing, so I called her back. It rang and rang before going to voicemail. She ended the call instead of answering. I try again and it rings even less this time, before going to voicemail. She turned her phone off or it died. I call her again and same result. I can't call my brother-in-law because I don't have his number. I've never had to call him before. I consider calling our mum to see if she can get in touch with my sister, but it's past 11 PM at this point, so I know she's asleep by now, and I don't bother. I don't want to wake her up unless there's an actual emergency. Plus, my nephew woke up at some point around then, so I had to pause trying to contact my sister and focus on getting him calmed down and sleeping again. It took a while, but he fell right asleep after I started scratching his back softly. That's a legit trick to get kids to sleep. It knocks them right out. So then I wait. They finally roll up at nearly 1:30 AM. I'm fuming by this point and tired. I just want to get paid and crawl into bed. I've been up since 8 AM, so I was hella tired. That's nearly 17 hours of being awake? My brother-in-law and sister stumble in. She's barefoot with her shoes in one hand and laughing loudly. I come ask them what took so long, and my sis starts going on about how great a time they had, how they hung out with cousin, and she pulls these stupid unopened tubes of Mardi Gras streamers out of her purse. She opens them and then flings them everywhere, loudly talking about the stuff they caught while I try to shush her. My nephew is asleep. I do not want him waking up again. She starts handing me all this rubbish from her purse that she said she got just for you, so don't be mad at me, okay? Like that junk would make her leaving me stranded at her place for almost twice as long as she promised anything better. The stuff was just a bunch of smushed moon pies, tons of beads, plastic cups and other junk. I said thanks but told them I wanted to go home. My sister waved me off and said for my brother-in-law to take me home, before going and flopping down onto the couch to sleep, I guess. I get my stuff and my brother-in-law takes me home, and I remind him to stop at an ATM and he sorta sighs. Like, I get he was probably tired from dealing with my drunk sister for hours, but I wasn't getting screwed out of my payment. He stops at a drive-through ATM, looks at me and says, "Alright, $75, right?" I'm not proud of this, but I actually let out a loud and said that no, it would have been $75 if they come home at 10 like they'd said, but they showed up at almost 2 a.m, over 3 hours late, so they owed me $125. He didn't look happy, but he got the money out and gave me my pay before silently driving me home. I went to bed exhausted but $125 richer. The next day, around noon, my sister called me. Furious, I'd conned her husband out of so much extra money when we'd all agreed on them paying me $75. I asked if she was still drunk because what we'd all agreed on was that I'd be paid $15 per hour, and they left me with their son for 8 hours. I also mentioned how she said they wouldn't be drinking, but she came home smashed. She replied that she'd been joking. Of course she was gonna drink. It was Mardi Gras. I said I got paid for the work I did, but she kept arguing that I didn't really work for it because my nephew was asleep most of the time I was there. I said it didn't matter, I was still sitting for her, and how you'd expect to pay a security guard to sit and do nothing even if things were calm while he was on the clock. She yelled that that wasn't the same thing, and we argued back and forth with her saying I should have done it for free. He's family, you should want to be around your nephew. I finally got fed up and said that next time she could hire some other sitter because I won't do it, or try to get some other family member to watch my nephew for free, fat chance, before hanging up. I didn't want to argue with a potentially hungover nuisance. She tried running to our mum about this, but mum told her she needed to not hire babysitters if she couldn't afford to pay them. My sister called me the next day and said she told all her friends that I was trashy and took advantage of them being late by charging them a ton more, and that none of them would hire me to babysit after this. I didn't really care because her friends are losers that I have no relationship with. Plus, I only babysat for one a handful of times, and her kids are loud as heck to boot, so no real loss there. I didn't babysit after that at her place ever again. I would only babysit if I was paid upfront and would take my nephew and niece later out somewhere, then drop them off with her when the allotted time was over so she couldn't leave them with me for longer. Oh my god, that just sounds like a terrible, terrible situation. I mean, first of all, when they're lying to you about just not going out, getting smashed, drinking loads, staying out way past the time they told you, that is bad enough. But then not paying you for the extra time you did? What? That's just, if anything, they should be paying you more because they've so badly inconvenienced you the entire night and you've had to stay awake for ages, just chilling, waiting, you know, probably thinking, oh, I really want to go to sleep, but I can't leave my nephew up alone on his own. What can I do? You're forced to just stay there and wait for them to come back. Oh, what terrible people. Oh, Jesus. Not gonna lie, guys, the more and more I read through the story, the more I was thinking, yeah, you know how at the start of the video I said that babysitting is relatively easy and quite simple pay? I'm not sure about that when you get people like these. Oh, God. Oh, I would not like to babysit for this couple, that is for sure. Moving on to our next story now. Anti-masker tries grabbing mask and gets punched in the face. This is going to be good. This is relatively short, but whilst it's still fresh in my mind, I'm posting it. For a bit of backstory, I live in a relatively large town in the north of England, and we currently have local restrictions due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm only doing shopping, working, and going out if it's absolutely necessary, and spending the rest of my time at home where it's safe. Anyway, on to the story. Whilst I was working yesterday, my friend went shopping. Now, I don't normally wear my mask when I'm walking through town. I do put it on when I go shopping or when I'm at work, as I work in retail, and the British government have made it mandatory for us to wear them at all times. But my friend wears his mask wherever possible, even when walking through town, and he told me this story yesterday as I got home from work. My town was relatively busy yesterday. It has been for the last few weeks, but it was even worse yesterday because of a local football derby in which my town's team won, so the pubs were packed out. So, my friend put his mask on when he went shopping to be on the safe side. One of the anti-mask wazzocks, who we shall call Richard for the sake of argument, jumped in front of him and shouted, "Mask Muppet!" at him, before attempting to pull his mask off, but my friend just turned around and lamped him square in the face. For those of you that aren't British, lamped pretty much just means punched. There'll probably be a guy walking around with a black eye and moaning about it right now, but it serves him right, idiot. I mean, look, guys, those of you that know me really well know that I would never say that violence is the answer to any problem like this one, but in this situation, I can fully understand why your mate did this. I mean, come on. Like, we all know, masks are there for a reason. I don't need to even say this. I don't even know why I'm saying this. Don't pull a mask off someone. Maybe this guy had a few drinks, but still, man, come on. Don't invade someone's personal space, first of all, and don't pull their mask off their face. You're gonna get lamped. Now for our third story. Apparently, since my nephew and I are different races, I kidnapped him. Okay, so I'm still fuming about this. Like, I want to go and find this lady and throw a bat at her head. Wow. So a bit of backstory. I'm a mixed 18-year-old female. I'm also one of 6 kids, and my older sister is 10 years older than me. She had my nephew about 3 years ago, and I absolutely adore him, but you can't tell that we're related. My older sister has a different father to me and the rest of our siblings, and you can definitely tell. She's pale, blonde hair, blue eyes, and my nephew is the exact same, and he's the cutest little boy ever. So my sister had to work and couldn't get anyone else to watch him, so I offered, like the good sister and aunt I am. I've watched him by myself plenty of times before, and I had nothing better to do. By the way, guys, this is not the same nephew and entitled mum from the first story, just a weird coincidence. It was a nice day and I live close to a park, so I thought it'd be a great idea to take him and let him run around and wear himself out a bit before he had to nap. So I grabbed everything I needed, put him in his stroller, and we were off. My parents also knew where we were going just in case there was a problem, and there definitely was. We got to the park about 10 minutes later, and my nephew was so excited. He was doing that little kid babbling, and it was adorable. I unstrapped him and off he ran. He knew to stay where I could see him, and I was always about 10 feet behind him, just to be safe. We were there for about an hour before he started getting tired and cranky and needed his afternoon nap. So I gathered his toys and everything else before picking him up, but before I could strap him into the stroller, I heard that signature Karen clearing of the throats. This lady was probably in her mid to late 30s and had been there before I showed up. She had with her 2 little girls, but they were just chilling and said nothing during this whole debacle, probably used to their mother's banshee screaming. "What are you doing with that boy?" Getting ready to take him home. It's almost time for his nap." "Well, where is his mother?" "Not here. Look, lady, what do you..." "So, you're trying to kidnap him?" Her screeching definitely caught the attention of every other parent around. "What? No, this is my nephew and it's time for us to go home." "How can he be your nephew if he's white and you're not?" She for real said this. After she said that, I just gave her this look of confusion, and even her kids looked at her weird. "Are you always this stupid, or are you having a bad day?" I probably shouldn't have said that, but she was annoying me. Now, if she wasn't mad before, she definitely was now. "What did you just say to me? Not only are you trying to kidnap this child, but you're also insulting me." She held out her arms. "Now give me the child." "What? No. Look, lady, I don't know who you are, and I'm definitely not giving you my nephew. And just because we don't have the same skin tone doesn't mean we aren't related." Before she could say anything back, one of the regular park mums comes up to us. Now, guys, she knew me, so she said, "OP, what's going on?" But the entitled mum says, "Oh, thank God you're here. She was trying to kidnap this poor child." "What do you mean? This is OP's nephew. I see them and OP's sister here all the time." "But how can that be her nephew? She's obviously black and he's white. How could they possibly be related?" This again sparked a tired and confused look on mine and the other mum's face. "OP, why don't you head home? Your nephew is obviously tired and you look like you could also use a nap." "Oh, thanks. Say hello to your daughter for me." "Okay, and say hello to your mum." I went home seething. You only think these sort of people are on bad reality TV shows or Reddit, but nope, I was wrong. I told my sister about this, and she too wants to hit that lady with a bat. Mum is just relieved that the other mum showed up when she did, because I would have fought that lady right then and there. Now guys, you may not know this about me, but I'm actually a quarter Mauritian. I think I've got a photo of me and my granddad that I might chuck on screen right now. As you can see, I'm not the same colour as him. Pretty crazy stuff. It's almost as if there can be interracial relationships. Who knew that was a thing? So I don't know what this woman was saying. I mean, like, just because you're a different colour to the person you're looking after, first of all, doesn't mean you're not related. And second of all, have you ever heard of being a nanny? You know, or babysitting, like our other story. You can look after a kid that's not related to you. That's not a crime. Doesn't mean you're kidnapping anyone. Oh, wow. Entitled people, eh? Crazy. Crazy people. So yeah, by the way, because I am quarter Mauritian, that means I am actually African. Pretty crazy stuff, right? Yeah. Let's move on to the next story. Now for our final story. Entitled parents think they are entitled to their adult daughter's medical records to help them blank shame her. I'm sure you all know what that means. In healthcare, one of the most difficult things to deal with are family members of patients. They are understandably angry, upset, grieving, devastated, and often feel helpless. Most of the time, I try to understand this and not get too annoyed when family cause problems, but these parents were on another level. One of my patients was an 18-year-old woman who had a pelvic infection. She got very sick, required a moderate stay in hospital. She was a dream patient, open, honest, and generally a lovely person. Her parents, though, were, well, none of these things. Every day they would come in and start demanding this, that, or the other thing from the nurses on the wards. They wanted an extra bed in the room so their mother could stay overnight. Honestly, it's COVID times. You're lucky you're even allowed to visit. In many places, no visitors are allowed. You can't stay overnight. They were rude to the student nurse who was doing their daughter's obs, to the point that the charge nurse moved the student nurse to a different set of patients to get her away from them. But when the doctors were around, they were the sweetest people you ever met, right up until we were out of sight, or we said no to one of their requests. They were disruptive, loud, and just generally obnoxious people. Thankfully, their daughter was aware of their trashy behaviour and had informed us that she didn't want them to be told anything about her condition unless she approved it. She was a legal adult, so she was entitled to her privacy. This wasn't a huge issue to begin with, as she shared most of the details with them, but then her mother googled pelvic infections and discovered that, gasp, sometimes they can be sexually transmitted infections. Dramatic music intensifies. As far as she was then concerned, we had screwed up and gotten the wrong diagnosis, because there was no way there was any possibility that her angel had even thought about having sex with a boy. They demanded to see their daughter's medical records so they could prove that we were lying about the infection. Politely telling them to F off was the highlight of my week. Unfortunately though, that wasn't the end of it. They came in the next day with legal papers trying to demand we hand over the medical records. It turns out they'd lied to the lawyer because the papers were for a minor still under guardianship of the parents, not a grown over 18 woman. They then threatened to sue each of us individually. This isn't America, you can't just sue doctors randomly. Then they tried to get some crackpot alternative doctor in to check her hymen. Thankfully, the daughter screamed murder when the guy tried to examine her, which resulted in me getting to watch security escort and trespass a lot of them off the premises. I honestly hope she presses charges for that. I mean guys, I don't know about you, but that has got to be one of the craziest invasions of privacy I've ever seen. What the heck? Getting another random private doctor to come into the hospital and try and inspect your daughter, your legal age, over 18 daughter's hymen? Oh my god, I just need to take a second to understand how mad that is. That's not legal. Clearly, yes, you should press charges. I agree with OP. Again, that's got to be one of the worst things about dealing with, or just working in a hospital, is dealing with parents like this, who are not entitled to know anything about their daughter. By the way, if she doesn't say you're entitled to see it, then you're not entitled. She's over the age of 18. That means legally you're not allowed to see anything about her, anything private. I'm sorry. It's just the case. Wow, what a story once again. Anyway guys, that is going to do it for this Entitled Parents video. I really hope you have enjoyed it. If you did and you want more Entitled Parents, then look no further than right here. I've got a whole playlist of them. If you are also new to the channel, then please consider hitting the subscribe button right here as well. It's completely free and you get to see my videos each and every day. turn notifications on if you're a real baddie as well. Yeah, with that all being said, I will see you guys tomorrow with a brand new upload. Same time, same place. Peace.